It is said that a hug is like a medicine, quick to heal, and a hug towards the environment, even to a single tree, can help protect the ecology. This kind of affection was prevalent in the movement which originated in the Himalayan regions of Uttarakhand. This was the Chipko movement of 1973. Before we dive down the historical timeline, firstly, we need to understand the overview of the movement that has been presented in the works of Ramachandra Guha. Ramachandra Guha is an Indian historian, environmentalist, and writer who stated that the Chipko movement, from a historical perspective, questions the amount of access the peasantry had to the forest, the relations Chipko had with state, scientific, administrative interventions, as well as the important role in economic life played by the population of women. Thus, the movement also stands as an eco-feminist movement. One of the main objectives of the movement was to protect trees and forest area because it was the primary source of livelihood for the tribal people. Along with this, the Chipko movement was one of the most significant movements of India that played an essential role in conserving the environment to maintain proper ecological balance in the region.
Chipko, as a massive protest, started way ahead in time. Before that, there were a lot of protests in the society. In 1958, there was a committee which was formed in Uttarakhand concerning the forest management. Because there was a need to locally develop the resources of the hills, the people viewed the restrictions as the forfeiture of their hereditary natural rights. Yet the committee worked on the preservation, development, extension of the forests, and to look upon the genuine needs of the people. Not only this, but there were various instances of protests in other parts of India. For example, the Communist Party of India activists in the Yamuna Valley had organized several satyagrahas. Villagers also refused to help the forest staff extinguish fire as they were bound to do that under the Forest Act. Women opposed the widespread distillation and the sale of liquor, which is why Sundarlal Bahuguna along with several others got arrested. Despite all this, there was a fresh wave of dharna when Bahuguna embarked on the definite hunger strike, whereas other bands were organized in several towns. Even the meetings at secret occasions had discussions over natural resources of the hill because that was the most concerned topic in those areas.
1970 flood and the Chipko movement. The 1970 flood was a devastating natural disaster that occurred in Uttarakhand, India. It caused widespread destruction and loss of life. The Chipko movement, which started in the 1970s, was actually a response to the floods and was a grassroots non-violent environmental movement that aimed to protect forests from deforestation. People, especially women, would hug trees to prevent them from being cut down. This movement brought attention to the importance of preserving our natural resources. On October 22, 1971, the DGSS organized a big demonstration in Gopeshwar, Chamoli. The protesters called for an end to liquor sale and untouchability and for prioritizing local forest use. They demanded that local units get preference in raw material allocation, led by Sarvodaya workers like Salla Devi and Chandni Prasad Bhatt. The procession was the largest ever seen in Chamoli district. In the following year, public meetings were held in Gopeshwar and Uttarkashi, demanding the replacement of the contractor system with forest labor cooperatives and the establishment of small-scale industries.
Located in the heart of central Himalaya, Mandal and Chamoli in Uttarakhand seems majestic. This is the maker of one of the most popular environment movement of the world, the Chipko movement. Chandi Prasad Bhatt marks the most distinguished president of Chamoli. He is the man who fought from the front to save Himalayan forests to being destroyed. He knows what a forest means to its people.
लोगों को मालूम था कि जंगल रहेंगे तो हम रहेंगे, हमारा अस्तित्व रहेगा। खेतीबाड़ी उसी पर निर्भर थी, चूल्हा जंगल पर ही निर्भर था। यहाँ तक कि संस्कृति भी उसके साथ जुड़ी हुई थी। तो इस प्रकार के संबंध पहले थे और उसी के आधार पर जंगलों के संरक्षण संवर्धन के लिए भी लोगों की कुछ मान्यताएं थी, उसी के आधार पर लोग जो गांव समुदाय था या बस्तियां थी वो उन जंगलों को बढ़ाने के कार्यक्रमों को आगे बढ़ाते थे।
As time moved on, the state growing monopoly conflict with people's Asian tribe over the forest.
जो परंपरागत जंगलों से लोगों की जीवनी प्रभावित होती थी उस पर बंदिश लगने लगी। तो उसके कारण क्या हुआ कि फिर लोगों का जंगलों से जुड़ाव बढ़ता गया। जैसे जंगलों से हल जुआ लाठ के लिए लकड़ियाँ मिलती थी, खेतों में गोबर में मिलाने के लिए पत्तियाँ, मकान छाने के लिए घास फूस इत्यादि कई। तो जैसे जैसे रिजर्व फॉरेस्ट होते गए लोगों के संबंध उससे कटते गए।
In early 1973, the villagers of Chamoli requested to Forest Department to allot them some trees to make agriculture implement. Their request was turned down and Forest Department refused to accept this request. Instead, they asked the DGS to use cheer tree which was completely unsuitable for the purpose. Around the same time, a sport manufacturing company granted permission. The cement company was allotted ash tree in the Mandal forest barely a few miles from the Kopeshwar. This grave injustice prompted to DGSS to hold several meetings in Mandal and the Kopeshwar to discuss possible action to option present themselves. Option 1 is a lying down in the front of the lumber trucks and the option B is a burning of the ration and the food depot as was done in the Quiet India movement. When Sarvodaya workers found both matters unsatisfactory, Chandri Prasad Bhatt suddenly thought of the embracing tree. Thus, Chipko hugging was born under the leadership of their chief Alam Singh Bes. The villagers of the Mandal resolved to embrace the tree even if the axe would tear them to pieces. The young men confirmed the oath by signing it with blood. Chipko was born before the actual arrival of the cement company in Mandal. Hearing about villagers' plan, the district magistrate called the UP government, which called Bhatt to Lucknow for talk. A compromise was suggested under which the government would allot the DGSS ash tree on the condition that the sporting goods company could take away its quota. The workers and agents of the cement company were forced to return the division without cutting even a single tree. In June, Simon was allotted tree near Patha village in the Mandakini valley on the way to the Kedarnath temple. When this news reached the DGSS, they were able to contact Kedar Singh Rawat, a prominent social worker of the area. Despite heavy rain, a massive demonetization was organized on 24 June. Disappointed, the company agents returned to Gopeshwar, where the complaint to forest office that even after disappointing the guarantee amount, they were not able to cut the tree marked for them.
The movement originated from an incident in a remote village, Rainy Forest, situated near Joshimath in the Alaknanda Valley. The village was inhabited by Bhutia community who were favored in settled agriculture. The Chipko Andolan spawned a new generation of environmental houses. Gaura Devi, Sundarlal Bahuguna and Chandri Prasad Bhatt become household names. After hearing of the auction, the DGSS workers contact the block pramukh of Joshimath, Govind Singh Rawat of the Communist Party of India. Meetings were organized where the Bhatt suggested to the villagers that they adopt the Chipko technique. The felling were scheduled for the last week of March 1974. On 25th, students in Joshimath threatened to start Chipko movement. For the felling operation, the forest department resorted to subterfuge. And hoping that Chandri Prasad Bhatt could be persuaded to stay on in Gopeshwar, arranged to visit the DGSS premise on the 26th. The same day, the man of Reni and a neighboring village were called to Chamoli for the compensation long overdue for land. The same evening, Govind Singh Rawat phoned Bhatt with news of the department deceit. At Reni, events had taken a dramatic turn. The contractor's van, who were travelling to Reni from Joshimath, the little girl saw them, rushed to Gaura Devi, the head of the village Mahila Mandal. She inspired a woman to chase away employees of a forest contractor, pleading with the labourers not to start felling operators. The woman initially met with abuse and threats. When the woman refused to budge, the men were eventually forced to retire.
Chipko was a local people's movement to regain control of their natural resources, snatched away first by colonial power and then by the Free Government of India. And finally, it was a movement of women trying to save their environment. Protest over forest policies deemed inimical to local needs which continued after independence. In 1974, the Forest Department marked trees for felling in the Pengmarinda forest near Reni village in Joshimath block, badly affected by the massive Alaknanda flood of 1970. The women of Reni drove out the contractors' labourers on March 26, 1974. This was a turning point for Chipko, as it marked the first time that the women initiated, especially when their menfolk were not around. The Reni incident also promoted the state government to set up a 9-member committee chaired by Delhi botanist Rinda Kumar, whose members included government officials, local MLA Govind Singh Negi of the Communist Party of India, Bhatt and Govind Singh Rawat, the block pramukh of Joshimath. The committee's report submitted after 2 years led to a 10-year ban on commercial forestry in Reni and nearly 1200 square kilometers of the upper catchment of the Alaknanda. The ban was extended for 10 years in 1985. Another response to Chipko was the formation of Van Nigam, a state-owned forest corporation, in 1975 to take over all forms of forest exploitation from private contractors. In Tehri Garhwal, meanwhile, Chipko activists led by Sundarlal Bahuguna began organizing villagers in May 1977 to oppose tree felling in the Henwal Valley. They resorted to direct action in December 1977 to protect the Advani and the Salit forest, and in March of the following year, 23 volunteers including women were arrested for opposing a forest auction at Narendranagar. Sundarlal Bahuguna became an ardent conservationist, and in April 1981 he went on an indefinite fast in support of his demand for a total ban on felling in the Himalayas above 1000 meters. Indira Gandhi, who was Prime Minister then, set up an 8-member expert committee to look into the matter. Although the committee absorbed the Forest Department and its sustained yield forest policy, the government instituted a 15-year moratorium on commercial felling in the Uttarakhand Himalaya. Irrespective of Chipko's grassroots achievements, it accomplished a lot at the national and the international levels. Chipko put forest on the political agenda in the country. The Forest Conservation Act of 1980 and the very creation of the Environment Ministry were due to the consciousness created by Chipko. Chipko's biggest contribution probably was the pro-poor environmentalism that it brought in its wake. It dismissed the notion that the poor destroy their environment and do not want to protect it. Chipko had a very humane appeal. Cut me down before you cut down the trees. The tree is far more important than my life. It is the basis of my survival.
In Dehradun, the auction of the Chakrata Division Forest had to be called off, following protests led by local students. At Uttarkashi's Hanuman Mandir, Sundarlal Bahuguna underwent a 2-week fast in October 1974, calling for a change in the existing forest policy. The lack of cooperation between the Van Nigam and labor cooperatives coupled with the damage done to cheer trees. On the occasion of Van Divas, Chipko activists in Tehri district informed the forest department that the raising scared cheer trees would be bandaged. When the department did not respond to the call to save the trees, villagers of Khujripatti started pulling out the iron leaves inserted to extract resin. In Advani forest, close to the Hemwal river, the Sarvodaya worker Dhum Singh Negi went on a fast, which was called off when the villagers assured him that they would save the marked trees. Signifying their close relationship with the trees, women tied rakhis around the wounded spots. The monsoon of 1978 saw another major flood, this time in the Bhagirathi Valley. Despite the flood, forest auctions were held at Nainital under heavy police protection. Opposition to forest felling also took place in the Chamyala forest near Bahuguna's ashram at Saliara. Elsewhere, people's committees were formed which successfully opposed felling at Loithal and Amarsal.
The Chipko Andolan first being introduced during the Naina Devi fair at Nainital in Kumaon region in the year of 1974. It gathered its impulsiveness after the major landslide at Tawaghat, a village near India-Nepal border. Some activists of the Uttarakhand Sangharsh Vahini opposed the auctions. In 1977 October, large demonstrations were organized in Nainital. The auction was rescheduled as several leaders of USV were arrested and a crowd of people surrounded the ring hall. Protesters sang the songs in the presence of police and constables. Again, they were arrested and set fire to the Nainital Club. Uttarakhand Sangharsh Vahini organized Chipko agitations in different places. On December 15, Chipko activities began in the Hat Forest of Almora, where 5,000 trees were marked for felling. The USV demanded the revision of forest settlement and ban on the export of raw materials from the hill. In the Chanchridhar forest in the area of Gagas River, where protesters marched into the block where Trees Corporation planned to cut 6,000 trees. Protesters camped over a week till foresters had to admit their defeat. Chipko Andolan witnessed growth in the district of Chamoli, in the Bhindar Valley, a famous valley of flowers and oak trees, where trees were marked to meet the fuelwood needs of the Badrinath town, as the temple consumed 100 quintals of wood every year during the pilgrim season. When the trees near Pulna village were marked, the village panchayat wrote to the forest officer and the district magistrate. On the second day of felling operation, the women of Pulna gathered labor and took away the implementation and saved 621 trees. More significant agitations occurred in the Pindar Valley in the village of Dongri Pentoli. The men of the village wanted to sell their oak forest to the horticulture department to establish potato farms. If the forest get cleared, the women had to walk long distance to collect fuel and fodder, but women raised their voice against the opposition, but their voices were neglected. Chipko activists helped by the district administration to save the forest area. The significance of Dongri Pentoli lies in the open conflict of interest between man and woman of the village, as men hope to make some quick money and women raise some fundamental questions challenging the system. The next Chipko agitation took place at Parsari. The Khasru and Moru trees were being cutted to meet the fuel requirement of Joshimath town. The Kumar committee recommended that there will be no felling of the trees in the area, as People's Committee headed by Narendra Singh and Narayan Singh organized a village opposition and refused to allow felling of the trees.
To appreciate the social and cultural aspects of Chipko movement, let's go to Badyagar Patti of Tehri Garhwal district, situated between Bhagirathi and Alaknanda River, about 130 kilometers northeast of Rishikesh. It is relatively prosperous patti containing a large number of retired and serving army personnel. The growing opportunities offered to individuals by commercialization, education, government employment is there. Commercial forestry in the region started only around 1965 with the building of motor road into the area. Following years, extraction of resin and turpentine was commenced. In 1979, One Nigam gave out a big contract for felling of chirpine in the area. Dozens of trees came daily, taking away all the woods, including branches of trees. Reply of contractor, early signs of protest was, "हम पेड़ का कोई हिस्सा नहीं छोड़ेंगे." Chipko leader Sundarlal Bahuguna came to Badyagar to inquire into the people's grievances. These leaders Dam Singh Negi, Kuwa Prasann, Pratap Shikhar, and Vijay Jardari went from village to village, informing people of proposed felling and its harmful ecological consequences. At the same time, Bahuguna's wife Vimla and other ladies mobilized village women on the issue. The Andolan started on 25th of December 1978, but acquired momentum only after Bahuguna went on a hunger fast from 9th of January 1979. Over 3,000 men and women, children participated, one for every chirpine tree in the forest. An attempt at cutting by night was foiled by villagers taking night duty by turn. Participation of all social groups was there. The Bajgis, a caste of musicians, was solicited to mobilize villages through their dholaks. Women played a prominent role. So did the government servants, defense personnel. Children too joined in a movement which created the atmosphere of joyous celebration in a fight against injustice. The Badyagar One Suraksha Samiti resolved to release wood only after the local people fulfilled their needs.
पैदावार ऑक्सीजन है, प्राणवायु, और फिर उसके बाद पानी है, फिर उसके बाद मिट्टी है, फिर उसके बाद खाना है, फिर उसके बाद पशुओं के लिए चारा है, फिर उसके बाद कपड़ा है, फिर उसके बाद औषधि है, फिर उसके बाद छाया है. ये तो है जंगल की जिंदा पैदावार. और जब पेड़ मर जाए, जंगल खत्म हो जाए, तो उसके बाद ईंधन और इमारती लकड़ी है.
Mr. Guha further highlights several important characteristics of Chipko. He states that there is an awareness among people of the importance of the ecology, wherein the movement has evidently contributed to this awareness. But he also highlights upon the fact that because of commercial forestry, the link between humans and forests that existed began to erode. Therefore, Chipko aims at halting the growing alienation of humans from nature. Second is the relation of Chipko to the community solidarity. To begin with, it is an ecological consciousness that showcases Chipko's success in mobilizing the Hill society. This was because the Chipko Andolan depended largely on Bahuguna's appeal, enjoying popular support. Otherwise, it would have been terminated with Sundarlal's arrest and indiscriminate felling would have continued. Third being the attitude towards officials, which basically is the lack of fulfillment of the basic needs, for example, education, health, and employment. Hence, those who belong to the forest are seen as a symbol of disillusionment. And lastly was the relation of women within the Chipko movement. It has been stressed that the Hill women have agricultural tasks such as collecting fodder, firewood, carry water, since the men folk left their families in search of employment. Thus, as stated, the important economic role of women is culturally specific to the Hill family and not merely a result of changed ecological conditions. Additionally, women's participation in the Chipko agitation was a very noble aspect of the movement.
Chipko in a history of protest. In Chipko movement, Badyagar was seen of wide-ranging peasant movement which results into the merger of Tehri states with the province of UP. Villagers were protesting against the extortion of money by the king's official and they marched towards the capital. In 1948, Dhandak remains vividly in the collective memory of the peasants of Badyagar and their heroism was invoked by Chipko leaders in 1979. Both the movements have strong similarities such as identification of the officials as the main exploiters. In both instances, the act of protest was seen as having moral religious sanctions. The important event in Chipko was reading of Gita. The Chipko volunteers commenced the reading of epic and rendition of folk songs. The conservator of forest who opposed the ceremony was firmly told that all the Vedas were written in the forest. The idiom of Chipko then can be understood in terms of the moral economy of the Garhwal peasants who could readily comprehend the tactics of charismatic leader of Badyagar Andolan. Bahuguna's method of functioning is far removed from that self-seeking politicians. Gandhian methods of non-violence and Bahuguna's personal asceticism was appreciatively responded to by the predominantly Hindu peasantry. Sundarlal's charisma is undoubted and his deeds are still an object of wonders in Badyagar. In fact, Bahuguna's record that his life was changed by a chance encounter with Shridev Suman when he was a schoolboy. He proudly refers to Shridev Suman as his guru in all respects. He also recalled Suman Historic's 84-day fast in Tehri jail. After the victory of Congress party in the elections of 1980, he invoked the support of the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, citing her concern at the situation in the Himalayas. Chipko then becomes in a strikingly similar fashion to the Dhandak. The only possible means to obtain justice is by bringing the wrongdoings of the officials to the notice of heads of the government.
Finally, one of Chipko's central features is its historicity, that is, its relation with past movements, which raised similar questions concerning the relation between the state and the peasantry. The dramatic act of hugging the tree to save it from the contractor's axe is the chief characteristic with which the movement is identified. Different Chipko agitations have invoked the spirit and memory of past upsurges against the curtailment of customary rights. In Uttarakhand, the participation of women in popular movements dates from the anti-alcohol agitations led Sarvodaya workers in the 1960s. However, despite the important role played by women, it would be simplistic to characterize Chipko as a feminist movement. Undoubtedly, the hill women have traditionally borne an extraordinary high share of family labor, and their participation in Chipko can be interpreted as an outcome of the growing difficulty with which these tasks have been accomplished in the degrading environment. Interestingly, Chandi Prasad Bhatt does believe that women are capable of playing a more dynamic role than the men, who are likely to lose sight of the long-term interests of the village economy in the face of rising commercialization. By embracing the trees, they are acting not merely as women, but as bearers of continuity with the past in a community threatened with disintegration. Activists like Bhatt and Bahuguna exemplified the highest ideals of Gandhian constructive work. Their involvement in Chipko is crucially informed, though in quite different ways, by a sharp historical sense and the experience gained from years of social activism in the hills. The Chipko movement is historically and philosophically an extension of the traditional Gandhian Satyagraha, which advocates non-violent environmental campaigns.
Chipko as an environmental movement. Well, till now we understood that Chipko movement is not the result of one minute movement. It came out of various other peasant struggles, social movements that occurred in Uttarakhand. Since the last agitation in 1980s in Uttarakhand, the movement activists they tried to spread the message as much as they could. And when afterwards Chipko got pardoned up in 1981, April, Sundarlal Bahuguna, one of the prominent personalities and contributor of the movement, he went on a fast for banning of the green felling of Himalayans above the altitude of 1000 meters. As a result of this, government made an 8-member committee to analyze the Himalayan forest policy matter. But they came with an agreement of 15 years moratorium, that is a temporary prohibition of an activity on felling of Uttarakhand Himalayans. Bringing up of this commercial forestry, Chipko ended a poach for the people and landscape of Indian Himalayas. Now, state forestry was not only a single threat to ecology and social stability, but commercial forestry was too. And all this led to the building up of dams, mining, alcoholism. But Chipko fought against all of these too. However, Uttarakhand ecology and society had to face more implications of the stabilization as rivers originated from Himalayas and agriculture depended upon it. Well, Chipko had 3 main leaders of different wings and they put down their own interpretation of environmental destruction and degradation. First is the Sundarlal Bahuguna, who was a major concern with the Bhagiti Valley. He was considered as one of the best leaders of Chipko. He said that the commercial forestry and the link between the contractor and forest is majorly responsible for the bad condition of this Himalayan environment. And he quotes that the ecological crisis in Himalaya is not an isolated event. It has its roots in the materialistic civilization which makes man the bucker of earth. Well, another activist who played a great role was Chandi Prasad Bhatt, who was associated with Alankada Valley. He did not deny the role of villagers in deforestation, and he said that this has been the result of separation of local people from management of forest wealth. According to him, this official and commercial forestry are in favor of the urban industrialist and they don't care about the needs of the local people. He was also critical about growing separation between the state and people as urban-centric technology was emerging in the rural area. But the thing to be noticed was both of them had alternative point of view on environmental activism. Bahuguna worked on prophetic mode, which included articles, lectures and marches, whereas Bhatt on the other side had reconstruction mode. He worked on biogas plants, low-cost energy and was part of the forest camps by DGSS, which enabled sapling plantation. And the thing to be noticed here was these sapling increased when the participation of women increased in these afforestation camps. For a brief analysis between both, you can look at the table that is given above and in your book, page number 449. It enables you to understand the difference in the context of historical influence, identification of agents of deforestation, broader underlining of cause, methods of working, relationship of Gandhian movement, solution at local level. These are the themes on which you can understand the relationship between both. The third group was of Sangharsh Vahini USV, which was active in Kumaon, and they had a Marxist ideologies. They majorly tried to move away from the 2 major leaders that I mentioned. For USV, social and economical redistribution was seen as logically prior to ecological harmony. It said
and it refused to associate itself with the state sponsorship development programs, and in its own work, it has occasionally come into sharp confrontation with the administration. The USV also shared with DGSS its vision of ecologically oriented socialism, but both of these groups are very different in their relative emphasis on political activism. The USV clearly prefer on organizing social movement that confronts the state to the grassroots level reconstruction work, such as afforestation, or arguing that it is responsible for the state of reversing the process of capitalist penetration and environmental degradation. And therefore, it does not share either the doctrine emphasis on non-violence espoused by both Bahuguna and Bhatt. So, therefore, in their own very different ways, the three wings of Chipko have questioned the normative consensus among Indian intellectual and political elites of feasibility of rapid industrialization and technological modernization. And of course, this debate has been worldwide and is yet in its very early stages. The link between the technology and ecology, politics and culture will definitely go into a significant change in further years. In Indian context, the Chipko movement and its legacy have helped define these issues with particularly clarity and sharpness, and it is likely that continuing evolution of Chipko and of its three contending subculture will definitely help us define the outcomes as well.